A young man, Yuuji Kazami, is being detained by the police. On being released, the principal of Mihama Academy, Chizuru Tachibana, picks him up and drives him to the school where he's shown to his room in the dormitory. On entering the dorm, he's introduced to a fellow student, Sachi Komine, who is wearing a maid uniform. The following morning, he meets two more students, Amani Suo and Makina Irisu, in the lobby, and later meets another student, Michiru Matsushima, in their classroom where she's practicing her tsundere speech. Once the class begins, he finds out that there's one more student in the class who's absent. Makina informs him that the absent student, Yumiko Sakaki, only comes in the evenings. When he comes to the classroom later that day to introduce himself, Yumiko tries to slash him with a box cutter. On returning to the dorm, he finds Amane changing clothes in his room, and during their discussion, he tells her that he had an older sister named Kazuki whose name she seems to recognize. Later, Yuuji receives a phone call from JB, who tells him that he has a job to do. The images during the end credits give hints of why all of the girls, except for Yumiko, are enrolled in the school, as well as Yuuji himself. Yumiko Sakaki makes continued attempts to cut Yuuji, but to her frustration, he avoids them all. Later that day, he encounters Makina, who's quite shy, but after he helps her catch a crayfish, she warms up to him and decides to call him Oni-chan. He then visits the principal's office for advice in resolving Sakaki's continued hostility towards him. He finds out that all of the other students have special circumstances for enrolling in the school. Yuji's guardian and work boss, JB, comes to pay him a visit at school, which stirs his classmates' curiosity, especially Amane, who wants to know whether or not Yuji has a girlfriend. Later that evening in the dorm, he's ambushed by Yumiko once again, but is nearly taken by surprise, reflexively responding by knocking the knife from her hand and intimidating her with the display. He then tells her that he's not her enemy and intends to be her friend. From that day onwards, Yumiko's attitude towards him softens. The end credit montage shows how each of the other students arrived at the academy, and how they became friends. Returning to the dorm after his morning jog, Yuuji sees Amane picking the lock to his room and immediately suspects that she may be an assassin. He listens and watches from the doorway as, to his considerable surprise, all she wanted to do was surprise him with a wake-up kiss. She then proceeds to jump onto his bed after smelling his worn clothes. Yuuji then makes his presence known to Amane's considerable embarrassment. While rushing to class later that morning, he makes up a song for Makina in which he teases Amane for her earlier actions. At lunch, Amane expresses her concern that Makina is starting to imitate Yuji's mannerisms. That afternoon, Yuuji overhears an erotic voice and discovers that it's Michiru, who is playing with a kitten. The following day, he inadvertently agrees to have Sachi make him a shark pouch, like Michiru's, only with glitter, though some quick thinking on Michiru's part allows him to foist the pouch on Makina. That afternoon during gym, Amane hurts her ankle and Yuuji carries her to the infirmary. After he treats her injury, Amane requests that Yuuji be her boyfriend. When he refuses, she changes her request to be regarded as his older sister, which he agrees to. The next day, Amane and Makina share their lunch with Yuuji, and he realizes that he's been avoiding people since his master's death. During his morning jog, Yuuji sees Michiru sitting on the grass with a cat on her lap staring at the sea and strikes up a conversation with her. The following evening, the residents of the dorm discuss Michiru's recent odd behavior. Later that night, Sachi, Yumiko, and Yuuji witness Michiru as she stumbles out of the dorm having gotten hair dye in her eyes and dripping it all over the floor. The next day, Amane asks Yuuji and Yumiko if friendship between men and women is possible. When Michiru appears, she's also asked the same question and runs off after answering. Yuuji goes after her and confronts her, stating that she's different from the Michiru he once knew. The new personality converses with Yuuji, then kisses him, and reverts to the original personality. The next morning, Michiru asks Yuuji to demonstrate what her other self had done to him the previous day, and freaks out when he almost kisses her. She runs off to calm herself down and chases her cat away. Yuuji finds her on the bluff looking for the cat, which she has named Nianmo. As they walk home together, Yuuji notices something and tells her to go on without him. Ignoring his words, Michiru comes up and finds that Meowmo has been run over and is dying. Yuuji hails a cab, but they're too late, and Meowmo dies in Michiru's lap. Michiru is devastated by Meowmo's death and has taken a number of pills, which causes Yuuji to take her to the infirmary where she recovers. Sachi gives him a locked box which she received from Michiru. He opens it and finds an exchange diary that Michiru kept with her other self. When Yuuji confronts her with it, he learns that Michiru developed the other personality after receiving a heart transplant and that her original personality has hidden itself away and does not want to return. Yuuji forces Michiru's original personality out, and she says that she wants to die. Yuuji agrees to help her, and he takes her to the bluff overlooking the ocean where she played with Mihama and buries her alive in a coffin. Trapped in the darkness, Michiru starts to hallucinate, and we see her past in a flashback. In middle school, Michiru became depressed because she was always being told she was a failure and intended to. On the roof of the school, she met another girl, and the two became close friends. However, the girl later in front of Michiru, which caused Michiru's weak heart to give way and led to her heart transplant. Michiru later discovered that the heart she received maintained its owner's original personality, with whom she was able to communicate. Back in the coffin, Michiru comes to the realization that she does not want to die anymore, and she pushes her way out of the coffin. Yuuji, who has waited 3 days for her to emerge, helps Michiru to the surface, and he carries her back to the dorm. Yuuji later takes the alternate Michiru to see her parents, and, although she appears less often, she still resides in Michiru. In junior high school, Yumiko slashes the hand of a girl gossiping how she was the daughter of a mistress and was brought into her father's household only after her younger brother and family heir died. Yumiko's father wants her to assume the place as the heir of the Tohin Railway Group, and Yuuji is ordered to act as Yumiko's bodyguard. He would then allow Yumiko to be abducted to scare her into returning home. However, Yuuji decides to disobey orders and protects Yumiko. As they wait out a rainstorm under a bridge, Yumiko reveals her past to Yuuji. Angered by Yuji's defiance of his orders, Yumiko's father plans to have Yumiko study in America and orders the shutdown of the school. Yumiko refuses to leave, prompting her father to come to the school to appeal to her in person. To his surprise, she opens fire on him with a gun and initiates a standoff. When his men charge the building after her ammunition runs out, she pulls the pin on a grenade and seemingly kills herself. Yuuji, however, had helped Yumiko fake her death. Yumiko is given a new identity including a falsified family registry and starts a new life as another student at the school. Sachi passes out in the bath after taking something Makina said too literally. The next day, Michiru facetiously asks Sachi to make the upcoming test go away. Sachi locks herself in her room and starts preparing to blow up the school using time bombs. The night before the test, her classmates show up just after she starts the timers. Sachi tries to get them to leave to no avail, but as Sachi throws herself on the explosives, they fail to detonate. Yuuji shows up and has everyone except Sachi head back to the dorm. He tells her he tampered with the timers and calls her Sachan, revealing that he has remembered her. As a child, Sachi was lonely due to her parents being too busy running their business. Sachi had met Yuuji at the playground and the two of them played together until he moved away. On Sachi's 10th birthday, her parents get in a traffic accident after Sachi ran away due to the previous months of neglect. Her father is killed and her mother has been in a coma ever since. Sachi reveals that she believes that her parents were in the accident because she was selfish and that she has to be a good girl who does what she's told to make up for it. Yuuji refutes her by saying that the selfish whims she subjected him to when they played together helped him forget his own troubles at the time. To repay that debt, he covers up the disposal of her bombs with a fireworks display. And that weekend, he takes her to visit her parents' shop where they find a birthday display and letter. The day ends with Sachi visiting her mother in the hospital, and then asking Yuuji for a hug.